by Brother Shane Murray.
Good morning, church. This morning's Bible reading is taken from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 8 to 13. I'll be reading from the NIV version. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish ways behind me. Now we see but a poor reflection as in a mirror, then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks, Shane, for reading the Bible lesson for us. You may be seated. As you know, these Sundays in November, we're having special independence services. So we're going to do things a little differently, but all to the honor and glory of God theme. We're going to be favored with a special by the Watermans. They're going to pay tribute to Sister Margarita Marshall. I want to pay special attention to the songs that they're singing because something else will be coming up later in the program. So the Watermans, they're going to do a special for us. Thank you. too short, no? Yes, that was very good. Thank them. Give them another round of applause, please. Now, as I said, we are going a little different this morning to the regular service. And right now, the pastor will come and do the introduction to the other part of the service. Pastor?
Good morning to the church family. And also good morning to those of you who are online. We are so pleased to have you with us this morning. As the chairperson would have said, this month of November, we are going to be having these kind of services, which helps us to remind us as to where we would have come from and the blessings that God would have bestowed upon us. So just sit back every Sunday morning and enjoy the varied kind of services that we are having, and ensure that as we reflect on our independence, we will see the goodness of God and the fact that we are a blessed nation. I'm going to invite the panelists to come to the platform at this time. Sister Johnson, Sylvia Johnson, Sister Martha Lord, and Brother Roy Thornhill. Good morning again to all of you online and those of you who are with us this morning in the congregation. We are coming live and direct from the Ruby Church of the Nazarene. I'm your moderator for the morning, Samuel D. Alcock. The last week we looked at when I was a child, and of course we do not remain children for all of our life. We must reach a stage of maturity. So we want to look at when I have become a man. We want to look at when I would have become a man. Sorry for that slight technical glitch. But just in case you would not have heard me from the beginning, let me repeat. A good morning to all of you. Those of you who are online and those of you who are worshiping with us. I also want to repeat that we are coming live and direct from the Ruby Church of the Nazarene, Barbados. I'm your moderator, Samuel D. Alcock. We are no longer children. We want to see ourselves as matured. And with me this morning, the panelists, we've got some matured persons who are going to help us to understand what would have happened in the past. And I'm sure that this is going to be very educational for all of us, because these persons who are sitting with me would have had some experience in the things of the past from childhood. I want you panelists, I want you to just cast your mind back to pre-independence Barbados when we were growing up. And Brother Roy, you are the only male, with my exception, but you're on the panel. I want you, Roy, can you share with us this morning what you would have remembered of Barbados, you know, being part of the West Indies Federation, which would have been between 1958 and 62. Any memory of that?
Yes, I do have memory of it. Growing up in those years were very difficult. Actually, we lived in a region where there was a lot of poor. It was difficult there to achieve material things at that point in time. Many of our parents were farm workers, worked with the plantations, and things were very difficult with us going through those years. Our primary education, we had fairly good stint with our primary education, and then we graduated from primary education to secondary education. But it was truly difficult in those years to really comprehend. I wonder how parents use it to make it. Children go to school without shoes and those kinds of things.
Thank you very much, Roy. I'm going to ask you, Sister Lord, what was school like, family life, and community life from your perspective?
Good morning, church. It's a pleasure to share with you this morning. As Brother Roy said, it was hard, but I was a child, and therefore that was the dispensation in which I came up in. So therefore, I had to make the best of it because I didn't know better. At that time, I loved school, and we used to walk to school, and I would have walked to school for a mile on mornings and a mile on evenings. We got up on mornings and we bathed our face and hand. Yes, we didn't have showers and things like those. We dressed, and our lotion was some good cooking oil we call lard oil, and we greased our feet and our hands. Then there was the old Johnson baby powder, and our parents would dust upon it our arms to make sure we were smelling good. We had our cup of tea and 2 hard biscuits. Those biscuits really tasted well though. And we were off to school. When we got to school then, we had to line them outside, and our fingernails were examined. They looked at our hair. They made sure that our hair was well combed. They checked our teeth and made sure that we were all ready. We did the best we could, and I enjoyed those school days. I enjoyed that period. As a child, and the community now, I liked on evenings, particularly when it was the crop season, and you had the trash heap. I like that when we go up at the top of the trash heap and we slide down. I love that. So that would have been fun for us, up and down the trash heap. Then later on in the evening, we would have played games. We had a lot of different games. And we would have games like Tradesman. I wouldn't explain that now, but we'll explain that to the younger ones later. Then we had games like Whip and Judge. Then we had games where we had Rick Chick Conga Day, where we got in the line. This one was a funny one. We got in the line and there was somebody behind, and we wanted the person, the leader wanted to get the person that was at the back. So we would say one day, and they reply, Conga Day. I went at the bed, Conga Day. The meat poor mama, Conga Day. Or rolled up chicken, Conga Day. I asked you for one, Conga Day. She won't give me none. This is where it starts. I want that bony foot girl down there, Charmy. You can't get it. You got to say you can't get it. I want that black hair girl down there, Charmy. You can't get it. But if I don't get, you're going to die for you. And a Rick, Chick, Conga Day, and a Rick. So we enjoyed those days, Pastor. As a child, I enjoyed those days.
All right, thank you. Roy, I'm going to ask you a similar question because your experience will have been different from Sister Lauren. What would have been your school days? What your school days would have been like, and your family life in those days?
Actually, while going to primary school, I was top of the class for 7 consecutive years. I used to sit beside some guys who were probably not at the level that I was at, But it was truly indeed a memorable thing. You go to school on mornings, 9 o'clock, and as Sister Lord said, you get examined and those kind of things. At midday, you go home for lunch. If there was lunch available, at 1 o'clock, you go back to school, come off at 3 o'clock. On Friday afternoons, around 2, you do gardening, what they call agricultural, what is now today. I used to do those to plant carrots and beans and those kind of things. But the unfortunate thing about it is that you never got any to take home. The teachers, they were the beneficiaries of those kinds of things, right? I know I had a very good headmaster at primary school. What I didn't like about him that much, every evening before he leaves school, I would have to fill his car with water. I would be ducking and hiding, and he'd be saying, Roy, come. Never trusted anybody else with his car but to put water in it but me. But he was a very good headmaster. So we had some very interesting time at primary school.
Sister Johnson, I'm going to ask you a similar question. Of course, you would have had some of those school days and family life. What your school days would have been at that time?
My school days were very good. I liked it. But the first thing to start off with for my school day was to go and bring water and fill up the bath pan and the tub outside for Mama when she wanted to wash the clothes. And then I would have a bath from that same water and get myself ready to go to school, you know. And school was good because at that time the school was called elementary school, right? You started school in those days when you were 5 years up and you go up to each class until you get to the 7th star, which was the South Standard, and that was the end of that school. Unless your parents have enough money or whatever it is to send you then to high school, and then you go to high school. But most children did not go to high school because of the poorness of our people as we were brought up. Most of the women stay at home while the men go out to work, and some women, I understand, was in the field. But I don't know much about the KFC because I born in Kennedy Road, Bengal. I'm not a Filipinian, so I don't know much about the countryside. So I can't tell you much about the crop and the cane and the loading and that, but I heard about it. But I am a St. Michael woman. And down there was very good. The neighborhood was very good to each other. We share and we do everything in the neighborhood. The children play and all such things like that. But the most thing is bringing the water on mornings, and then evening time, when we come home and Mama used up all the water, we go and put it back up again for her, you see. And I enjoy it as a child growing up. You know, I enjoy my school days. And if I have to go back to school now, I will go back to school.
Okay, Sister Johnson. Sister Laura made a comment earlier, and I remember growing up as a child, and like Sister Johnson, I am not a Filipino either. I remember two youngsters who would have lived in my district, but they would not have had the kitchens that we would have had now because their kitchen was basically mud. And they would have used the same cooking oil to grease their feet. Every morning, the rat would be biting at their feet all the time. So those were some extremely challenging days. Even though I may not be able to speak to some of the things that they would speak of, I remember that occasion that the guys spoke about. Of course, we are now experiencing a level of church and service that would not have been experienced by persons way back. I'm going to come back to you, Sister Lord. What was church like then when compared to now?
I spent all my life in church, really. My parents went to the Anglican church, but I went to the village church, which was the Wesleyan Holiness Church in Ferry Valley, because I kind of like that kind of service. Anyway, we went to Sunday school. They made sure that we went to Sunday school because there was something about those kind of churches that was different. I love the Anglican songs because we call them the Anglican songs because we learned them at school. We had to know the hymns. So a lot of the hymns which I know from the Asian and modern, I know from being at school. A lot that I know now and knew then, I knew from the Wesleyan Holiness. Anyway, when we went to church, Sunday school included, because we went to Sunday school first. The Sunday school was like our Sunday school now. We didn't have a lot of teaching aids and things like that. But what happened, the older people, or the elderly people, which I should say, those were the ones who used to teach the Sunday school classes. And I thought that they did a very good job with the limited knowledge that they had. So not only was that, when you go to Sunday school and the Sunday school teacher liked you, you could get a little card with a memory verse to take home. Or you could get a little pamphlet that you take home. You would always have a story to take home. Your parents weren't there, but yet you had that to take home.
Thank you.
Sometimes it was in the morning, sometimes it was in the evening. But Sunday school, yes, it was different, but somehow I liked it because a lot of things were inculcated into us that has lasted me up till now. I'm getting older.
Thank you very much, Sister Lord. I hope that you are enjoying the studio. We're enjoying the panelists. I'm sure that they're sharing with us some very important information. And it only goes to show how far as a nation we have matured. Roy, over the last few days, we've been having some very inclement weather in Barbados, and I'm sure even in Jamaica, there have been really, really some serious change in climatic condition. I believe that there are lots of young people have heard someone when they said this, that they would love to see a hurricane. And I believe they are speaking from a certain degree of ignorance. Now, we would have had Hurricane Janet in the year 1955. What is your most memorable memory of that occasion?
Well, I have some very great memories of Janet, and I was recapping them yesterday. Janet was on the 22nd of September 1955. At that time, it was 145 months and a day old. Janet, at that time, the weather forecast used to come from Sewell Airport, now the Grantley Adams Airport. And they said that the hurricane would have struck Barbados around 2 p.m. on the 22nd. And the guy at Three Houses Plantation called Mr. Barbaris, called the rediffusion station, and told them that the distance the hurricane was off Barbados and the speed at which it was traveling, it would have to be in Barbados, it would have to strike Barbados around 10 o'clock. And that morning, around 10 o'clock, the wind started blowing. I know my next door neighbor, on the other side of the street, he got a ladder, put up on his house, went on top of the house with a hammer and some nails, and he started to nail. And God is so good. As soon as he made the last flight off the ladder, the wind took the roof and carried it in the backyard so, and put it to land in the backyard. And the wind blew and blew. We see houses toppling over, trees toppling over, fruits out the trees and all kinds of things. The rediffusion service gone. The day after the hurricane, myself and two friends of mine, we were under a breadfruit tree, conversing. And I saw a loose wire from a big black box on the utility poles. And I said to my friend, "Do you have a ladder?" He told me yes. I took the ladder, went on the pole, and I took the wire and pushed it back into the socket and restored all the rediffusion in the area, every rediffusion in the area. Yeah? But it was very interesting. After Jeanette, we had an influx of carpenters in Barbados. I don't know from where they come, but everybody was a carpenter at that point. They had to restore houses, they rebuilt everything in Barbados.
I think Roy got a very good memory of what would have happened at that time to have been able to calculate the amount of hours and things like that. He would have had to have a very, very good memory. I looked at the ladies, and I thought that both these ladies are beautifully attired in their independence outfit. And I think that we really should applaud them. They really were dressed for the studio this morning. We are blessed to have Sister Johnson with us. At 86 years of age, her last birthday. Sister Johnson, God has been so good to you. There are lots of persons who would love to reach that age. So we really want to thank God with you. Now, Sister Johnson would have left Barbados for the UK when she was about 27 to 28 years of age, and that was in 1961. She just returned in 1995. Sister Johnson, I want to ask you, how was it for you living in the UK, particularly when you first got there from Barbados? You were making a break for the mother country, a different environment, a different culture, different people. How was it for you?
Well, it surprised me at the first because when I went by ship because I had my 2 children with me, and we traveled from country to country. And the last place we had traveled up to Italy, and then we take a ferry boat from there to Dover. Then we take a train from Dover to Victoria Station. And when I got there, my sister and family were there waiting for me because they were up there before me. And I was really surprised. And then they bring clothes and things for us, and I felt because I said, Lord, I leave Barbados to come here to get a better future, but I think I'm going to only spend 5 years here and then going right back to Barbados. But it wasn't that way. Anyhow, she had a flat and she had her rooms and things there, and I stayed with her, with the children, until I get somewhere for myself and the children, you know. And I was a bit down, but then my spirit just get up because I got a job at the London Transport in the catering department. And I was very good and very pleased to be working there and learning different dishes and sharing to the women that work on the trains and things like that. And gradually I get into it, and I liked it. And I went further from there, and especially then in the summertime, it was good. I really get to like it, because if I did not really like it, I would be back here in Barbados, but I stay up there, I think it was 32 or 33 years I spent in the UK. And I really enjoyed it up there.
I've noticed, Sister Johnson, that you still maintain your native language, or you...
Yes, I did.
I've spoken to persons who live in New York and Miami and those places who maintain their language. They've never changed it. As a matter of fact, some of them said to me that the folks in America don't speak like a Bajan, so why should they speak like an American? But of course, then there are those who would have gone for 2 months and they've changed already. Sister Laura, we are celebrating independence this year, and quite a few of us, a lot of us would not have been born at that time. I want you to share with us, what are your memories of Independence Day itself, and where were you at the time?
I looked forward to independence. I didn't know what I was looking forward to. But there was a lot of talk because we came up with I came up singing the British anthem, God Save Our Gracious Queen. And we came up knowing, well, if the Queen came to Barbados, we lined the streets and things. Well, we gave honor where honor was due. That went on for a time, and then all the emblems of independence came in. We were in school, because this independence, although it was thought of as when Mr. Barber went up to get it, then we then had to learn our long national anthem. Because remember, the British one is a short one. That is why we end up only singing verse 1. Because sometimes you don't remember verse 2 really, because we get such accustomed to the police band playing it and this band playing it, that you will find that sometimes if we are singing it, it isn't on the screen, that you don't remember the second verse. Anyway, then we had the coat of arms. We had to know what was on the coat of arms and what the dolphin meant and what this and what the other meant. Then, you see, we had those things to look up for. Then we had our pledge. Then we were thrown into, we used to call it the flowering fence. We had that flower growing all around the place. But then we got to know what the new name was. So for us, we were thrown into, look, you have to learn this thing quickly, because this is what's going about. When it happened at the garrison, well, I didn't go, because I was young. When Janet hit, I was 4 years old. So if you want to do 4 to 66 and got math, right doing math, you can do your math. Anyway, when that happened, the rain fell. So even though I wanted to go to see what would have been taking place, I couldn't go. But what I do know is that when the older girls went and they came back soaking wet. But then the joy came when I could hold up my flag and say, we are independent, and I didn't know what independent meant. Because remember, I would have been in that era where we are now learning. Don't laugh at that, because even in this era, some of us don't know what independence really means. Because we are independent, but very interdependent, so we are still learning.
Thank you very much, Sister Laura. I remember, I believe a lot of us remember, God save our gracious Queen. Long live our noble Queen. God save our Queen. I remember hearing that in the rediffusion. Now, you will agree with me that the music in the church has changed considerably. Within the year 1960s and 70s, the music in the church became more dynamic, particularly as local talents and concerts emerged. Now, Joseph Niles himself was one such artist, and we would have known Joseph Niles and the Consolators. As a matter of fact, I had a great aunt that the only music she played was Joseph Niles and the Consolators. Central, Never Busy, Telephone to Glory. All of those songs I would have been familiar with. So he made a very indelible mark on the musical landscape in Barbados, and I should also say within the Caribbean. Singing with the Consolators in the 1960s and 1970s, along with Sister Marshall, who is still alive. Joseph was passed, but Sister Marshall has made an indelible mark on the landscape of Barbados. And then there were persons like Anne Riley. I'm sure that those of you who are old enough would remember people like Anne Riley. Roy, I'm going to ask you this question. What do you remember about that time when Joseph Niles and Sister Marshall and personally that were a lot more visible when compared to the music we get now in the church, which is a little bit more modern?
Joseph Niles' time and Sister Marshall, those songs were very inspiring. They move you from the level that you were to another level. The spiritual realm where you worship and you praise God based on those songs. Today's music, well, in spite of the fact that we have a lot more instruments and all kinds of things, you know, it is very enterprising and entertaining. But with Joseph Niles, he took you from one level to another level, and so did Margarita Marshall, right? They were all inspirations to me. And in those days, nearly every household you go to, you would hear Joseph Niles, Margarita Marshall, those kind of people. So it was really an inspiration for us, and everybody looked forward to listening to those songs because they inspired us.
Thank you very much, Roy. Sister Johnson, I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to try to phrase it in a way that you understand very clearly what I'm trying to ask you. And this is not meant to be political in any way, but there was a time when our late Prime Minister Errol Walton Barrow, when he would have said that he really looked forward to the time when there would not have been even one sugarcane blade found in Barbados. Now, my question to you is this. What was the stigma associated with sugarcane production that would have caused him to make this comment? Or in other words, why do you think the Prime Minister would have made that statement? That he didn't want to see a sugarcane blade in Barbados?
When he was in Prime Minister, no, he wasn't in the country yet.
Oh, you would not be here?
I wouldn't be here. I wasn't here.
Okay, Sister Laura then.
All right, we were a sugar producing country, and that is where we had our men and our women toiling daily. That's where the money used to come from. So we were working hard, and I believe with the coming of independence, it would be all right. Let us start getting something different for our people. At that time, we had domestics. At that time, we had a lot of young people then who didn't have any work. So we then went, and he was in an era where we got the industries. So the women were able to go out and work in the industry. We started doing manufacturing. So the women went out and worked in the industries. At that time, we used to call them the dressmaker, or we used to call them the seamstress. Today, now we are calling them the designer, the fashion designers, and things like that. But of course, the fashions are more modern because the world was opened up. And with the opening up of the world, as we would say, well, we got better. So when we got better, we did better. People like me, I shouldn't put myself first, but like teachers and nurses, there was an open up. And that is how we got jobs. We got jobs too. Because all the time you would have had to be in brown skin to be working down Broad Street in the bank. And nobody like my color, though brown, I'm very black. I would not have gotten a job. We would not have gotten jobs easily in Broad Street. You see, you had to have a pretty face and a pretty skin to be in Broad Street. So when he said that, this is my opinion. When he said that, I thought he was looking for, he want us to progress. But if he had to come up now, hindsight and foresight are two different things. After we got all of these things that we got, and we realize now that the world history, you see what happens? History teaches us what it don't teach us. And we know, looking back, and we are saying we have all wall structures on the land. We import in a lot of food. The food bill very high. And we were looking out for land to go back to plant the same food. We're looking out to get revenue from the sugar cane that he didn't want to see a blade off. If he had to come out with Caribbean Sea, driving about now, floating about, thinking about, I guess he would have changed his thoughts. You see, we say things to suit times. But then history then shows us, look, that's what I'm saying. That was that era. But we are in a different one now. And I am sure, we don't have a lot of money. If the planes don't come back, if the ships don't come back, they tell you, go in your yard. They may soon tell you plant cane. But thank God that we are alive and we'll make the best of the opportunity that we have. Yeah, it was stigmatized. It's called had a thing of slavery, see? But we have moved.
I think the Prime Minister Assembly, Dorber, said he meant well. When one looked at the way black people were treated and persons with a particular pigmentation seemed to have been the ones who were preferred, I was sure he meant well for us. But in retrospect, as we look now, every place that you go, you realize that, like Sister Laura said, the food bill is astronomical. As a child growing up, around my parents' house would have been some area where we would have planted something, thyme and seasoning and something you could have gone out into the yard and picked something. But now we are now having to purchase these very same things. So if you look back, while we have made some steps forward, we may very well have made some steps backward as well. And Roy, let me ask you this question. As we examine the whole idea of independence and sugar cane, do you remember when persons, particularly our women, when they started working in the industry, and while some moved away from being domestic and working in the hotel sector, do you remember when this really would have started, especially the women?
Yeah, back in those days, sugar was top of everything. I could remember one year Barbados had an influx of sugar canes. Those days, the sugar canes were nearly as tall as this building. We had to remove them from out the road. We used to call them band them back from the road because they were tall, and we used to get a lot of sugar from it. Now, to go back a bit, to make a statement like not wanting to see a blade, that is around the sugar harvest time. That was the only time poor people would get money to repair their homes or to build homes. No other time in the year. Rainfall was very significant. I remember the years when rain used to fall in Barbados every conceivable day. Rainfall now 3 days in a week and people complaining. But the 50s rain used to fall every day. 50s and 60s rain used to fall every day. The plantation workers cut the canes. Sometimes they'd have to bring them from out the fields in between the carrot roads in order to load them on the trucks. Rain don't fall now like those days. Women use it to have to head the canes from the grounds into the road, get up on ladders, load the canes on the trucks, and all those companies. We have really come a long way. We have definitely come a long way. And to God be the glory for the heights that He has placed us at now.
Thank you very much, Roy. As one living in the country, I remember, because my area, a lot of sugar canes were around there. It's not developed. I remember quite well, as little school boys, we would have gone into the cane field to help some of the guys cut some of those canes, and they would give you a little $2 or $3, and if you were fortunate to get that $2, you were a millionaire. I remember my mother had said to me, because they were very strict at the time, do not go out in the sugar cane, stay at home in the house until I come back. But the house was so close to the sugar cane field. From the front and the sugar cane field on the other side. So I went across into the sugar cane field because I wanted a little $2 or $3 like anybody else. And I asked this guy to help him cut some canes, which he gave me extremely sharp callings. And as I proceeded to cut the cane, I cut my finger. It bled so badly up to today. My mother never knew that. The mark is still on my finger, but I got my money though. That was the most important. Sister Johnson, I'm sure that you would be able to compare now and yesteryear. You've been discussing a lot about the times that would have passed. How would you compare then and now, what we call the old time days and now? What the comparison? How in retrospect?
The olden days, they were good, but we were poor. But by the grace of God, we made it. And as I said, when I leave here, we were poor people, and most of the people went out to earn money to support themselves and support the family back here. When I came back, there was a lot of changes. There are so many bungalows and buildings and less wood houses than in my days. And things have improved very, very, very much, for good and for bad. But as today, as I look back in my days and now, there is too much violence, too much lawlessness, too much wickedness, too much killing. It's improved, but our lives are not safe. I feel nowadays that sometimes when we go, we do not know if we're going to come back home because you don't know who's going to shoot you down, who's going to stab you or what. It is very, very bad and a lot of wickedness is around. We got all this technology, yes, it has improved. A lot is improved, but there's too much evil and wickedness and lawlessness around us. To me, I feel not quite safe at this time. That's the truth.
Okay. What is your view on that, Sister Lord?
I'm going to compare and contrast it, yes. There are good things about both of them. I enjoy those times when I was a child. When I was a child, I enjoyed being a child. Now I'm an adult, I have a lot of responsibility and a lot of stress. When I was a child, I didn't have any stress. I only had to do those things and eat and put on what little clothes I had. I am glad that we have improved, yes, because the Bible did say that as time goes on, there's going to be a lot, knowledge will increase. So with the increase in knowledge, yes, I learned a lot of things for which I am grateful for. We became highly educated because when it was at school, our reading, you have to read, the teacher would have written it on the chalkboard and you learn to read from the chalkboard. Today we have a lot of books and half the children of Barbados can't read. So you see, when we come from one way, we come from the other. But I am glad that the opportunity was made for the children that they could go into the secondary school. And we say it was free education. It's not free because you are still paying for the education that is supposed to be free. Every taxpayer is paying for this free education. Children, it is not free. Your parents are paying for it. And when you do get a job, you will continue to pay for it. So block that myth. But the Bible did say that these things would come. And before independence, you see, before we were guided a lot. Now, where the decisions were made for us, we are making our own decisions, but we are making some very bad ones too. We are making good ones and we are making bad ones. And we are suffering the consequences. I love to see that we work hard and we got houses. When I was growing up, I wanted a big, big house like a palace. Who didn't want a big, big house like a palace? And I don't beat anybody for that. You know why? We taught them in school, the sky is the limit. Good, better, best, never, never rest until your good is better and your better best. And we were taught that nothing is wrong in aiming high and getting things. It is what the things is doing to us that is causing the problem. You see, we have our beautiful mansions, but we wash in debt. You see, so I'm going to choose no. None is better than the other. I enjoy my childhood. I didn't like these sugar pops and all that kind of things. I didn't like those things. But even now in retirement, I didn't come home enough less stress. I come home with children. So it isn't easy for me. I am going back through my childhood. And I am coming through my middle adulthood. And I am into my old agehood. Next year, please God, I'll be 70. I will be at that golden age. And I thank and praise God. I lived through both. And the Bible says it's going to get worse. So Johnson, I don't know how long we're going to be here for the worst, but the Bible says it is going to get worse. If you think it's bad now, it's going to get worse. So all of us, let us enjoy what time we have. Praise in the Lord.
Amen. I concur with Sister Lord when she said, you know, you are a child, and I remember as a little boy growing up, I said, well, when I get big and get a man, I am going to get married, and I'm going to have my car, and I'm going to have the children at the back, you know, by the way it's cream looking out, because I saw that. But now that you've grown and you've gotten a man and you've got those children, you say, Lord, boy, going back to our young children's age. This is the final question I'm going to ask all three of you. Mrs. Johnson, I'm going to start with you. We've got pre-independence and we've got post-independence. In other words, before and after the independence. If you were to choose one of those eras, do you prefer to live before independence or after independence?
That is a difficult one, but I know before what we went through and what we are going through now because of the independence, and we are better off today. But as I said already, what got me is this wickedness and violence is what got me. But yet still, I will. If I could, we cannot go back. That's one sure thing. We have to go forward. But I like my children days. I like my young days better than I like now. That's the truth.
Okay, Roy, I'm going to come to you. Which one would you prefer if you really had to go back?
I love my primary school days. At the back of the exercise book, there were tables. I knew those by heart. I sat down at school one day. I said, wait, back only 12 times tables? What happened to 13? And I sat down and calculated up to 25. 25, 25, 6, 25. All of those things. But elementary, primary school education was exceptional. There was a lot of mixing. You play cricket, you will pitch, the camaraderie was greater than it was today. A group of guys and girls too walk from school home and they make a lot of fun and all those kind of things. So I love those primary school days. Today, you don't get that kind of camaraderie. If somebody acquires something greater than you, there's always envy. You envy the person because they have this, they have the next, and all kind of things. But in those days, it was nobody to envy, because actually everybody was practically on the same level. But now, so I prefer those days, Pastor.
Sister Lord?
Yes, I endorse what both of you said, but I'm going to put myself in the middle. Neither hot nor cold. I'm going to be warm, because I like some of, yes, those older times. And I told you why. I'm liking some of these times as well. You see, because there was good and all. I didn't like the grass bed, because you get chinks and everything, but chinks coming back now too. You see, but we have mattresses and things like that. So why won't I want a mattress? Why won't I want a fridge? Why would I want a nice sofa? Huh? Why wouldn't I want my bunk beds? Yes, I appreciate some of the good things that we get now. And I am going to tell you the truth. We always saying that the youth, the good old days, but I can write that OLD and put some inverted commas in it too, or around it. Because now, you see, later on, and as these children get older, the young people get older, I don't want them to go back. I don't want them to go there. That's history. God forbid that we should get for them to have to go back there. Don't borrow tomorrow's trouble. Let us deal with what we are dealing with. I enjoy my life today too, you know. I do enjoy my life today. I enjoy that we come to church and we could dress up pretty and we could look pretty and, you know, and we can have our feast. There's a lot. But then the country now, because we are associated with the world, the piper, if you call the piper, you go out sing the dance to the piper tune. So you see, that's why we gone down now. We talking about homosexuality and this and all of that corruption that coming out. That is what I fear. But even though I fear, not that kind of fear, remember, we have our young people. What would be the example for our young people? What will our young people become? What would our young people become? But this is what I'm saying, church, it leads you there. these things will happen. The Bible says it's going to happen like in Romans 1. You as a church and we as individuals, we have to make up our minds that we are going to work out our salvation with fear and trembling and stop getting confused and try and look to see Jesus Christ. So I am in between two. I love both, but keep your eyes on Jesus Christ, and that is my final point.
I just want to concur with the comments made by the members of the panelists. I remember I will not be able to go as far back as them, but times like now when conkeys were made, my mother would have made conkeys for the entire district. And doors could have been left open, nobody would have robbed you. Everybody looked out for each other, but those days are no more. So I thank God for both times, and really it's a blessing that God has brought us this far. I want to take this opportunity to thank you panelists, Sister Sylvia Johnson, Sister Martha Lord, and Brother Roy Thornhill, for sharing with us today from the studio your life, what you would have experienced, and I'm sure that those of you in the audience would have been thrilled to hear some of the experiences that would have been had by our panelists. I want to really, on behalf of the Church of the Nazarene here at Ruby, Barbados, thank you so very much for sharing with us. Let's give them a good round of applause. All right, let's give the panelists another round of applause. First Corinthians chapter 13, 11, you would have heard us say so very often. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. And when I became a man, I set aside childish ways. For just a few moments, I want to focus on when I became a man. I put things aside that were childish. Now, so far, in our first two services, we have taken you on a journey from dependence to independence. We saw Barbados move from being controlled by our plantation owners rather, and the mother country in yesteryear to become a federation. And this is between the year 1958 to 62, and then independence in the year 1966, and what we call yesterday. Now, there came a time when Barbados had to put away childish social and political dependencies, behaviors to grow up into an independent state, and started handling its own economy with a shift away from sugarcane to industrialization and tourism. And Barbados was indeed acting like a man. Things were also changing in our churches as more Pentecostal and town hall churches started to multiply. Notably, music of the church was becoming more dynamic, and Christian concerts started to become popular. Joseph Niles was a gospel artist who made an indelible mark on the musical landscape in Barbados and the Caribbean, where he sang with the Consoleries. And in 1960s and 70s, also Sister Marshall and Riley would be a part of that. Now, Joseph Niles is often credited for introducing drums, guitars, and trumpets into worship. He basically established this in the evangelical churches in Barbados and as far as Brooklyn. It is said that he carried the music to the people, children and adults alike. Sister Marshall, on the other hand, is a stalwart on the gospel music scene since 1971 and continues to be warmly welcomed and embraced for her humble, unassuming, and encouraging nature. Her debut solo album, entitled Walk Holy, continues to be regarded as an anthem, ushering gospel music into many secular arenas. Barbados, indeed, moved away from its childish ways to explore life as an independent state, to pick itself up with the added responsibility of picking others up on their way to manhood, just as we too must do individually. I want to take this opportunity this morning to thank our panelists and look forward to continuing our independent services next week. I also want to thank you for being part of this service this morning, and I do sincerely hope that as we continue with these series of services, that you will enjoy yourselves, enjoy the presence of God, and really understand where God would have brought us from. I thank you.
Well, we had a lot to think about. We had a really good discussion, and I'm sure all of you enjoyed what you heard. Well, before the discussion, I didn't remember to give the official welcome. But at this time, you would have known that you were truly welcome in this service today. We pray that you enjoyed, everyone, but the online visitors, that you would have had a good time and that you would have cast your mind back, because I think most of the online visitors are a lot of Bajans that still tune in to hear what is going on here. If we would have listened to the 6 o'clock class with prayer session, Bible study, would have had some people from the diaspora on Zoom on Tuesday night, and they were also talking about the discussions that we have here, and there are services on Sunday that they listen to them. So we welcome you, and we continue to pray that you would tune in and that you would encourage other people to tune in. And we always enjoy having you with us. At this time, we are going to have the announcements. The announcements are the same for Tuesday nights. The Bible study is at 6 and 7:30. I'm not sure if we have any other special things that are going to be done Tuesday night coming, but we had a very good session last Tuesday night. Let's stand. Remember, these services are continuing next Sunday. And after the benediction, we're going to have a preview of what next Sunday is about. So let's bow our heads. May the grace of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit rest and abide with us now and forevermore. Amen. So take your seat and we'll listen to what's happening next Sunday. And also the worship team is going to come back and give the final song after that.
Yesteryear, yesterday, today, forever.
Would you believe we are already halfway through our independent services for 2020?
Time really has gone by as we looked at both the historical and spiritual development of Barbados.
And so, we continue to explore our core text taken from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11 and 12.
Over the last 2 weeks, we have already looked at being a child.
And being a man.
We trust that you enjoyed those services. We certainly did.
Next week, we focus on today, charting unknown waters.
Let's join hands and show we love Barbados. Let's join hands and face the future together.
As we also sing some of the new love songs of the church.
Yes, we are really looking forward to that.
Let's continue to wear our independence colors, blue, yellow, and black. And remember, COVID-19 protocols are still being observed.
So feel free to join us here in church or live on Facebook or YouTube. Join the link. Please invite a friend. See you next Sunday.
Yes, so we have something to look forward to next Sunday. Earlier, I had asked you to try to remember what the Watermans, what the songs that they played. Anybody remember? I hear mumblings, but I ain't hear it. Anybody remember the songs? Well, you were paying attention. Walking up the Kingside Way, Walk Holy, and Ship Ahoy. I don't remember the Ship Ahoy too good, but I know the other two. Yes, so I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Do have a good week. And remember, God is on your side. He's always there. Remember that.
Take a little time in the morning, and you'll feel better all day. Take a little have yourselves a wonderful week.